I want to welcome to the podcast Jade Bennett, owner and founder of Healing with Jade. Jade, thank you so much for joining me today.
I'm very excited.
We're going to kick things off straight away. Jade is one of the most experienced, one of the most empathetic and understanding souls that I personally have ever met. And I want to explore that with her today. Jade, the owner and founder of Healing with Jade. I want to get everyone on the same page with what you do and how you do it. So can I throw the ball over to you to give us an insight as to who you are, how you've gotten to where you've become, how you've gotten to where you are rather, what you do with your clients and how it all has unfolded for you?
Of course. So I have been doing the life coaching thing for a couple of years now. I started off with my courses through the Life Coaching College. So I got my qualifications with neurolinguistics programming, hypnosis. But what ultimately led me to becoming a life coach and what inspired my self-healing journey was some of the things that I faced in my past of when I was 11 years old. I lost my mum unexpectedly out of the blue, and I lived with my dad and my brother. And so obviously, as you know, grief approaches people in different ways, and everyone's approach to that death was very different. And so I was forced to see my own brother and my dad retreat and suppress their emotions out of denial and fear. And so I went down a different path, and I wanted to more so explore healthy grief, processing, and ultimately come out of the other side with a lot more understanding of life and a different perspective. So from that, there was a lot of challenges that were thrown in my way, but that's what ultimately led me to want to become a better version of myself and explore this self-development.
Yeah, and obviously, before we go any further, I want to address today's episode is going to be largely around. I want to pick your brain and your wealth of experience and knowledge on healing and the process of healing and how we all go through it, but more so with your life experience on not only with your clients but also with your family, with the healing process for men and how men can help better understand what that looks like. But then a step further from that is how the ladies in their life can actually help them through that process.
Yeah.
Obviously, knowing you personally the way that I do, Jade is a close friend of mine, and obviously you've helped me with a whole bunch of stuff when it comes to healing, which is largely why I wanted to get your insight into this. But today I want to talk more and explore more on what it looks like for how you get and what are the steps that you can get your clients, particularly in the early stages of the grieving and healing process, to get them to either find perspective or the steps that you take in order to assess where the level of grief is at. More so with, I want to say, the male clients that you see, because there is that stigma of when, men kind of express emotions and feelings, that there is that element of toughen up, deal with it, get on with it. That ongoing thing that's still there that men just need to kind of get on with it.
Yeah, that's very much still an issue. I think a lot of society comes down to stereotypes, and obviously women have their own stereotypes, but in terms of men, something that we always see is the kind of toughen up mindset of get over it, you'll be fine, don't cry, having to be the rock all the time. And I feel that this stigma around men has really caused, without getting too deep, suicide rates to be higher for men because they don't feel like they can be vulnerable and express that side of them without feeling that shame and embarrassment.
There was a study released that I saw last week that 80% of men under 30, the greatest risk to their life is their own hands. And a very, very close friend of mine who has been going through some pretty ordinary mental health stuff. On face value, you would never know it because he is the most Aussie bloke out there. He's a rugby boy. He's unbelievably good-looking bloke. He's funny. He's articulate. He's very successful. He looks like a redheaded Chris Hemsworth. And one of the things that he spoke to me about on this particular subject is, if you're in a position of being fortunate enough to be, someone who is successful, good-looking, tall, intelligent, there's a thing of, no one cares, like your life's good. And he spoke to me largely about he was having some really dark self-harm thoughts. And he shared this with his mum. And his mum simply said to him, but just be happy, just cheer up. And, there was that element of her almost dismissing those thoughts and feelings purely because, not necessarily in this case that he was a man, that might have been playing a role, but there was certainly an element of, yeah, but your life's good. And, he highlighted to me that she said, well, there are kids starving in Africa and there's a war going on in Russia and Ukraine right now. And there's an element of, he said to me, yes, but I live on the northern beaches. So that isn't a catalyst for me to determine, I can't compare that pain that someone's going through to what I'm going through. And I think the point that I'm trying to highlight here is we all have our own ceilings of what grief and pain looks like. And, something that he kind of said to me with stuff that have been an ongoing thing for me in my personal life and him in his personal life, you've got those mates that can sometimes help with these sorts of things, is that there is more often than not that overwhelming sense of no one gives a shit, toughen up, your life's great, like what are you whinging about? So what kind of strategies do you have with your male clients that come in that on face value do have their shit together on paper, they tick all the boxes, they're successful, they're wealthy, they're, everything on paper that seemingly someone would want in a alpha male.
Yeah.
People still must come to you with these things of, yeah, but I'm unhappy and I'm going through something. What do you do in those situations when guys come in with that?
Yeah, well, quickly covering on what you said about how your friend feels like he can never truly feel his emotions without that toxic positivity being forced on him. I think that's very much a common issue because there will always be someone who has it worse than you. It's never like, and it shouldn't be a competition. Like you're allowed to feel how you feel without someone telling you, but they've got it worse. Yeah, they do have it worse and that's awful for them. But we're all allowed to feel how we feel and to process our own emotions without feeling shamed or guilty because that's just a part of the human experience.
Do you find that when people come to see you, there is that initial thing of, I'm a bit ashamed to be here? That I'm a bit...
Especially from men, they feel like it, for some of the men that I coach, at the start, they felt like it was hard to express themselves and explore that side of them because there's something that they've suppressed for so long. I feel like it's a way of people feeling like others can understand their pain by comparing it to certain people's or comparing it and voicing it out loud. Sometimes people don't feel that they can just come forward and say how they feel without showing the impact of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. I think something that you can shine a lot of light on because you, due to the nature of the circumstances and things that have happened in your life, grow up with two other guys in the house who are also sort of exploring that sort of grief process and living day to day with that. Can you provide a bit of insight as to being on the other end of that, what that kind of felt like and what you experienced with your father and your brother overcoming this and how they kind of managed it and how you managed your own grief at the same time whilst managing their grief too?
So my mum was the peacemaker within our family. My dad has always been the rock, but my mum was the emotional rock. So when she was gone, it was very obvious the missing piece in our little family. And although I was 11, I felt within myself that I had the responsibility of trying to be the emotional rock. And so obviously my dad and my brother experience grief differently, as everyone would, but I found it hard watching them because even still to this day, I feel like people will be the first to comfort me and to look after me, our friends and our family as well, because I'm very vocal about how I feel. I will tell someone if I'm not okay, I will talk about it, whereas because...
A lot of guys don't.
Yeah. So I think because they're more likely to push it away and to retreat and act as if everything's okay, people believe face value and they will think, oh, that's okay, cool. We'll focus on her because she's talking about how she feels. Whereas they're probably feeling worse than I am, but they don't feel safe to show that vulnerability with others.
No, there's definitely an element of a sense of, not necessarily shame, but, I think there is a unfortunate reality for a lot of men out there that I think the women in their lives want them to be sensitive, vulnerable, open, and explore and manage those emotions and feelings until they do.
Yeah.
Because it then feels like, and then talking from experience, it does then feel like once you do open up and you are vulnerable and you are trying to regulate your emotions in a healthy, safe way with your partner, more often than not, you are either then looked at as, you go from being this amazing, strong alpha male to a beta male where it's just man up, and that is a very difficult thing for men to navigate, because it's not necessarily that we don't want to open up and share. It's the fear that if we do and when we do, it'll be held against us. And I think too many guys have the experience of that happening in their life. And it might not be in the moment, but it might be in a argument later where it's used against you as ammunition from something that you might have said something or done something that's rubbed your partner the wrong way, that is then used almost cruelly and maliciously against you. So it's that awful thing of that you don't want to share too much because you do need to be stoic and you do need to be an alpha male and get on with things. But there's also that other side of the fear that someone might hold it against you. It's such a hard tightrope to walk.
Yeah.
And in my personal opinion, that is where someone like yourself comes into it. Because there are safe areas and safe places that not just men, but women and people in general can go to for that professional advice that is free of judgment, fear, just an open, honest, safe space where people can talk to someone like you with such a wealth of knowledge and experience who can actually provide solutions without the attachment or fear of it being held against you later in a relationship.
And there's no bias as well.
No bias, no judgment, no prejudice. It's just you and someone who you have connected with on a professional capacity to help. And that is where, your skill set is above anyone else that I've personally dealt with these things, largely because of your life experience and just even seeing the journey that you've gone on and where you've gotten to where you are with it all highlights how capable and amazing your skill set are with these sorts of stuff. From here, I guess the thing when it comes to managing that grief and healing as a whole, have you got steps in mind? I mean, you're the expert on this. What do you do on a daily basis if something requires you to reflect within, kind of regulate your feelings and emotions and take action from that? So I guess for the everyday person listening who isn't an expert in the field, how does someone overcome both small little day-to-day things that all of us need to recover and heal from, and then the larger scale, big-time grief things?
Like you said before, coming back to it's having those safe outlets to show that side of you, express that and let that out, because that is the issue with some men, is that they will push it all down, but there's only so much you can take. It's like that bottle that builds up and up until it explodes. And it comes out in a way that's not ideal, not how you'd want to react, and it ends up causing more pain in the process compared to letting off steam as you go, expressing how you feel. Obviously, there's a time and a place. You don't want to break down crying in the grocery store necessarily, but having those safe places where you can rather be alone, process your emotions through journaling. I find journaling helps a lot. When we have things in our head, it always seems a lot more hard to comprehend, a lot more in your face, really. But when you put it out onto the paper, it's creating that distance and it's getting that perspective. Like you're in a helicopter and you're looking down on the situation and you can see from a whole nother view. It's taking yourself out of that situation.
A really interesting point on that, and you've articulated that so well. My friend who I mentioned earlier was quite literally on a work site one day, and he said to me, out of nowhere, he'd been suppressing these thoughts and feelings, and he said he was literally in the process of drilling something into a wall, and he just started bursting into tears and collapsed on the ground. So he had let it get to that point where it came out in that vent. And it took that for him to go, for him to actually say, shit, yeah, I think I need to go see someone and explore these options. So it's such a good point that you make, like that you can't kind of let these things build up. And there are outlets that we need to have, things like journaling and, even just, I think having a group of support around you is so important.
Community.
And this is something that I actually want to highlight, not only to you, but to everyone that's listening, about the state of where men's health is at. And I'd love you just to watch a video and get your response to this, because talking about that community and those people in those safe spaces, a lot of people out there don't have that.
Yeah.
And this is what I just wanted to get your take on this.
Okay, ready?
Who do you call when you are at your lowest? Who is that one person?
Nobody. I'm a man. No one cares.
Not a single soul. Nobody.
No one. Because I'm all alone.
I think I speak for a lot of people when I say I don't call anyone.
Nobody. I'm a guy. Nobody gives a shit.
Speaking for the guys when I say this, literally no one.
Y'all call someone?
Nobody. Just nobody. No one's talking. So nobody. You guys.
No one. I'm a man. No one cares.
No one. Not a single fucking person.
I wouldn't call anyone. I wouldn't turn to a single person on this earth because they don't care. They will just find a way to use it against me.
Now, after watching that, coming from personal experience and knowing a lot of guys in a similar boat, as an expert in this field, how do you respond to that?
I found it very interesting how they all said basically the same thing, just with different wording. And you could tell that these guys were from all over the world. They wouldn't probably know each other. It was the common themes of no one cares, I'm a man. No one cares.
Yeah, there's definitely a sense of where do people like that go? Now, I am so fortunate in the sense that I've worked with you on a professional capacity. I have a great support unit of friends around me and amazing clients. Some incredible things have happened when it comes to people showing huge levels of support with things for me personally in the past. And even with that amount of support and that love, there is still that thing of, but I just still feel so alone, and the question that I kind of wanted to probe with you here is, when it comes to dealing with men and women, is your approach to dealing with men and women different? Because I feel that a lot of the time men get if they do get help, they get help in a way that would be more aligned with helping a woman, because men and women heal differently.
Definitely.
And
yes.
there's a huge thing, I think, of a lot of mental health professionals and experts of kind of putting everyone under the same umbrella of, this is how we all heal and this is how we all deal with trauma. But that is not the case, and I think largely for women, things are very much based around love, whereas with men, things are more based around respect.
Yes.
And I think that those two separate things need to be very clearly identified, because otherwise, if you're trying to heal a woman with respect, it's not going to match up very well.
Women need more nurturing, men need more directness.
Right. What do you mean by that? How? Give me an example of how
So-
would a woman be nurtured when they're looking to be healed and find peace and growth? How would you explore that?
Women need more reassurance, and they need that kind of... Well, obviously it depends as well, because I know some women who, like myself, like more direct to the point, give me the facts, no bullshit. Whereas some girls would probably like to feel more reassured, have that affirmation, and know that they have a safe space. Whereas men, they like to feel still alpha. They don't want to feel like, like smothered. They don't want the smothering. They want to know it's okay to feel the way you do. These are the steps to get to where you want. They don't really want to fluff around. Not that women fluff around, but they want to get more to, okay, what do I need to do? Tell me how we can work on this, and let's go.
Almost like finding a little bit of purpose again.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a really cool initiative that I'm fairly confident was set up from the Queensland government, but the old men sheds where old men will get together and pull apart a lawnmower and talk about stuff. They actually found that, and this was actually a global initiative that they have now pushed out to other governments around the world, where men are actually more likely to talk about things if they're standing next to one another working on something, rather than sitting across from someone like we are now in a kind of formal setting, whereas women are happy to do that.
Yeah.
Whereas men will open up more if they're standing side by side from one another, taking the lawnmower apart and going, anyway, so how's things at home? You're good? Rather than sitting across from someone in this intimate setting where there's that kind of sense of, I've got to be tough, I've got to be stoic and all that sort of stuff.
You can't run away. When you're
Correct,
face
totally.
to
That's
face,
right.
you're looking
That's
in
right.
the eyes. You can't disguise how you feel. Whereas when it's, like you said, it's more of a confronting situation.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're standing side by side working on something or throwing the ball at the park, it's more a casual setting with a little conversation. It's not like, okay, we're sitting down, how do you feel?
It's one of those funny
It's not as in your
generalizations that
face.
is actually accurate, where men need to be doing something with their hands and busy and having a chat whilst fixing a lawnmower.
Yeah, definitely.
The next thing I kind of want to broach on with you is just coming back very quickly to the grief thing and how people deal with grief based on their individual circumstance and their individual kind of needs to a situation or whatever it might be. What is your take on, people who you've worked with that are in the process of the healing journey over loss and the side, the flow-on effect of depression and anxiety that comes on with that, and how do you best mitigate that with your patients and clients?
I think the biggest part of grief is acceptance. And the longer that you're in denial for, the longer that grieving process will take. Whereas when you actually accept the situation, you accept the outcomes, and you don't have these ideas in your head or you don't push down your emotions, you just let it all out onto the table, see exactly what it is in front of you and say, it is what it is. That is when you're moving in that direction of healing and moving forward.
Can you think, do you have any clients that you would kind of put under the umbrella of avoidance, that are kind of holding on to things that are kind of, I want to loosely call it the Band-Aid fix of distract and attack and it'll go away.
I call it the numbing.
Right.
Yeah.
And what do they do when they're numbing? What things would they do? Like, would it be alcohol abuse or would it be
going out every weekend, drinking, drugs, sex, gambling, all those things. Obviously, it comes down to the intention behind it. If there's a healthy man that just wants to go out with his mates every weekend, that's fine, as long as you have that intention behind it. Whereas if you're doing it to try and run away from how you feel, to drink, to distract yourselves from the current events happening, that's when it can turn to a downward spiral.
I guess, that is it's one of those things, it's so much easier said than done, and in the moment trying to, it's very easy to say, don't stress or don't grieve or be happy. It's kind of like, if I say to you right now, don't think of an elephant, the first thing you're going to do is think of an elephant.
Yeah.
So if someone's telling you, you need to move on, you need to find peace, you need to, it's so hard to be able to put that into practical application in the moment,
There's actually a fact that the brain doesn't hear the word don't. So it does not register the word don't.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So when you, like you said, don't think of a purple elephant, you're going to think of a purple elephant. Don't think of rain, you're going to think of rain. The brain actually doesn't register the word don't. And that's why, without getting all woo-woo in terms of manifestation and speaking things to existence, when you say, I don't want to feel sad, the more you say that, you're looking for things, your reticular activating system is moving towards things that will make you feel sad or change your outlook on life.
Right. So almost your physiology and biology is working against you in a funny way.
Your thoughts create your reality. Obviously, you need to take action, but the way that you speak to yourself and the way that you think about yourself and others dictates how your life will unfold.
Have you seen the Japanese study with the professor who did the rice experiment and words? Do you know about this?
No.
So there was a professor in Japan who created a study who he boiled, I think, 10 to 15 jars of white rice and then would put the labels of words of meaning on these jars. For example, he would have things like love, gratitude, family, peace, and then he would also have things like hate, disgust, revolting. And every day they completed a study on the rice and would say the words on the jar to the rice. So every day they would walk down to the jar that said, I love you on it, and they would say with the intent to the rice, I love you. They would then go to the same jar that had you're disgusting on it and would say, you're disgusting. And this unbelievable thing happened. And I know on face value, this does seem a bit woo-woo and magic-y. And I strongly encourage anyone listening to actually research and Google this because it is unbelievable, the results they got in this study. That the rice in the jars that had all the negative wording and the negative connotations to it that was spoken to ended up rotting and becoming black. And the rice that had, I love you, you're amazing, I respect you, all these positive affirmations stayed completely fine.
Yeah.
And on face value, it sounds woo-woo-y, but they managed to actually kind of quantitate what was happening. And the frequency in which you say things actually affects matter, meaning your words matter.
Yeah.
So if you were saying to yourself, I can't get over this person, I'm never going to heal, I'm never going to be, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like you're effectively rotting within. So I hear that and I couldn't agree strongly with you on that because your words have so much meaning. So if you are saying to yourself, don't. After a while, it's just going to be on repeat, this thing of this negativity that is going to be manifested by yourself. Sometimes I think we're our own worst enemies and we can't get out of our own way when it comes to healing from something.
Well, because you create those beliefs and you associate that with your identity. I can't move on. I can't let them go. you can let them go. But because you are saying this, you're setting your brain up to think, oh my gosh, I can't let them go. This is just me. This is how I am. I just need to live with it.
Yeah.
So coming back to grief, grief is not only through death, it is also through losing someone in your life. And that can also be in terms of friendships ending, breakups, and if you don't mind me briefly talking about, obviously you've had your own experience with this. And yeah, I'd just like to hear, how did you manage to get to where you are now and that process of grief for you?
Yeah, look, it's one of those things that is something that you actually said to me once resonated so deeply with me, in the sense that people do assess grief differently. And for me, the grief that I felt, the only way I could explain it is after losing someone very important to me in my personal life is it felt as if she died. You know, it's a very unique human experience, being so intimately close to someone and seeing yourself spending the rest of your life with someone, and the next minute they're gone. You know, even if people can live around the corner from you, but there's still an element of, well, yeah, but you're never going to see them again. And even if you do, it's going to be just kind of that sliding doors moment of just crossing paths. It's not going to be on the same capacity. And it's been, I guess, coming full circle to what we've talked about today, a very difficult thing, because for me, there was an element of such immense loss and heartache, and that feeling of, yeah, I guess pain and working through it was only kind of able to be improved through working with you, through having the support unit of my friends, because, you know, coming back to that video we watched earlier, like a lot of guys don't have that. A lot of people don't have that, not just guys, but a lot of people don't have that. And so I can't even imagine how difficult it would have been to not have a support unit around me. You know, I do live alone. I spend 90% of my time alone. I'm a fairly isolated guy anyway, by choice. But I guess for me, that's kind of also highlighted that might not be the way things should go moving forward, which is what prompted me to work with you through this. Because, yeah, again, it's not an easy thing to let me put it to you like this, having lost a best friend in the past from a drug overdose, and that feeling of grief and pain and anxiety and depression from that was paralleled by this breakup. You know, it's the same level of grief and abandonment, and I think people working through that right now, I have such empathy and sympathy for people who are going through some form of breakup and heartache, because it's undescribable, the pain, you know. And I think something that you've helped me learn is that, you know, if you trip over and graze your knee, in 2 weeks that's healed. If you break up from someone after a relationship, after 2 weeks that's not healed. So there's an element of awareness around your emotions and feelings and how you work through that, because it's to be clear, as you know, it's still very much an ongoing process. And I think one of the things that has really helped is it's okay when things go down.
It's normal to ride the wave.
Sometimes you need to embrace that dark and that suck of this really hurts. And there are days where it's like, yeah, it's crippling. The pain is crippling. And the longingness to connect with people and that person and that person and that person is excruciating, the pain. But that's a part of life, you know. And I always like to kind of use perspective in moments like this of, you know, if you think of an Enneagram, you know, the heart rate goes up and down. You want that. You don't want it to flatline. If you flatline, you're dead. So you've got to take the good with the bad. And I think that through our sessions, I've learned is life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And without without the darkness, you don't see the stars. So you've got to find a nice resolution to these things, even when it sucks.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, you've just got to keep showing up for yourself. Little steps that help. Speaking as someone who not only has gone through this pain and grief, but also someone who runs a business and has a lot going on, you've got to show up for yourself. You've got to, because the alternative is you can't lock yourself away, and you've got to continuously find ways and avenues to get out of it, and that's ultimately what made me reach out to you, to my friends, to the wider community of people who are a support unit around me. And that is kind of my advice to anyone going through this is you're not alone. You're not in this isolated bubble where people are judging you or looking at you in a way where that you're being mocked. That's not the case. And, if you can seek help from either a professional, friends, colleagues, people in your life, family that are going to be there for you, then you'll find your way out of it. Like the night is darkest before the dawn, and the healing process of this very much is still an ongoing thing, and it sucks. It fucking sucks. But there's light at the end of the tunnel. And, for you to be such a pivotal role in helping this healing process, and the fact that I didn't have that stigma attached to it of, I need help, which in the past is what I did. It was very much that sort of alpha male, I'm a boss, I'm doing my thing, I've got 5 businesses, I'm busy, I'm making money, I'm killing it. That's all bullshit. That's just a facade, I think some people, and I'm really keen on your thought with this, some people put their emotions up, a little bit like Instagram, and it's everyone's highlight reel. It's that facade of, everything's great, where it's like, we all have someone in our lives that on social media, for example, the reel is just like, it's they're away on holiday, they've got a new car and a new job, and behind closed doors, it's like, man, you're a wreck. What is this sort of avoidant, what's this thing that you're putting up of, I'm all good. It's like, no, you're not. You were crying in the change rooms 2 minutes ago. What's going on? So I think there's an element of being real and removing that stigma of, for me, I'm this egotistical boss that's got all this shit going on, to, no, I'm just a human and I need help. And reaching out to you is the best piece of advice that I can give to people going through something, is reach out to your circle. And if you don't have a circle, find one. Use a professional, join a gym, join a running club. There are 101 things that you can do instantly to improve your situation.
Even hobbies.
Couldn't have put it better myself. One of the things that Tony Robbins does really well is he talks largely about change your physiology, move. The second you move your body, things happen. So even something as simple as, you don't have to go for run a marathon, walk around the block.
Yep.
Something as simple as changing the current state you're in will instantly improve your mindset with it.
It all comes down to your body language, because what I've noticed with clients at the start of our first introductory session is the people that are slouched over, that are looking up through their eyes, deep breathing, they're the ones feeling more the negative emotions and saying the negative things out loud and thinking that way. And it's also, it's a proven thing that when you sit in that low, hunched over position, you feel more depressed, you feel more tired and lethargic. Whereas when you have your shoulders back, head high, chest out, it represents confidence, but it also makes you feel that confidence within yourself. It's that energy, that happiness. So a big part of even just changing that is, like you said, changing your physiology.
Have you heard about the Superman and Wonder Woman pose?
Yes.
It's insane, isn't it?
Yeah, the
So
power pose.
Power pose.
Yes.
So for anyone listening that doesn't know about this is an absolutely incredible piece of advice, is if you are feeling, probably best not to do this at the office or in the middle of a
Go
work,
into the bathroom.
Yeah, go into the bathrooms and do this. If you go into a private place and literally power pose, as if Superman or Wonder Woman's posing, they've done things where they've taken swab tests on people and actually seen an increase in testosterone levels, and they've connected brain scan things where it's increasing dopamine and confidence and serotonin in your brain, just simply by standing in a power pose.
Yeah.
So something as simple as that is such a useful tool that you don't need to fork out thousands of dollars for that or read a self-help book cover to cover. You can just go into the bathroom, power
And to
pose, take some deep breaths.
Yeah, even to take that a step further, thinking those affirmations like we talked about in your head during that power pose of, I can do this, I'm confident, I'm enough, I'm good, I'm doing my best. That will take it even further.
All right, switching gears very quickly. What I want to ask you is, being an expert in the field, what 3 things a day, if you can just name it, keep it to 3 things, that you do on a daily basis to help with your day-to-day life, your healing process, and for anyone listening, for people who are in the season of healing, shall we call it, it's people who are going through something right now, what are 3 things that you as an expert do that help with your day-to-day life, just getting on with stuff?
One is gratitude. So every day I have a journal and I write down 3 things every day that I'm grateful for. And my one rule is they have to be different to yesterday's. They can't be the same.
Nice. Okay.
So rather it can be external, it can be internal, the way that you feel about something, to have a certain family member that you really appreciate on a certain day, or your dog, or whatever it may be, the ocean. It's just reminding yourself of the things that you do have that you are grateful for, because I think when you're stuck in that grief and that lower sort of emotions, it's very easy to get trapped in it and think there's nothing else.
It's always easy to find something negative.
It just all feels black.
There's always something negative to look at. Yeah.
So it's training our brains to look for the things that we appreciate, look for the things to feel grateful for, and like you said, give light at the end of the tunnel. I think that a lot of people feel that they need to have this massive thing that they're grateful for, whether that be an external event or something coming up. And it can honestly just be as simple as, I woke up this morning, I get to live another day. Or you may not be able to get out of bed, but you're laying in this nice comfy bed with a shelter, with a roof over your head. Like, it's the simple things that people often do take for granted. And I think that you also don't want to put that pressure on yourself to find the 3 things to feel grateful for. If you can only find 2, you can only find 2. That's better than nothing. Like, it's getting in that routine of finding things to feel grateful for and looking for that gratitude. Whereas you don't want to put pressure on yourself that it feels like a chore to find things to be grateful for, if that makes sense. So that's 1.
Yep.
Number 2 is meditation and mindfulness. I ideally like to do for half an hour a day if I can, but even just doing 5 minutes a day, sitting on a beach or in a nice spot with nature, listening to the noises, doing the box breathing, in for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and rest for 4.
Can I ask you a question on the meditation?
Yes.
Because this is something that I think a lot of people struggle with who do try and meditate, where you're sitting there and the whole time you're just thinking stuff. Like, you just, cool, I've got to do that later, and this is awkward, I'm sitting here and it's really windy, and you get those thoughts that come into your head. Have you got any advice for people like me who try to meditate, and people listening who those external things come in and kind of distract you? How do you fix that?
Accept it. We are constantly being stimulated by everything around us, and our brains never just are completely silent, ever. And I think the problem where people can't meditate is because they think they have to be perfectly zen and rest, there's no distractions, no nothing. Our brains are always working. We're always thinking about things. And an analogy that I heard, because I used to also struggle with meditation, and I set that limiting belief on myself of, I can't meditate, why do I even try? When you think of meditation like you're looking at the sky, you're seeing all these clouds passing by. You're not attaching to the clouds, but you're just observing them, letting them pass by, because that's just life. We are always thinking. We just, instead of giving those thoughts attention and thinking, oh, I shouldn't be thinking this, I shouldn't be thinking this. Again, I shouldn't, I don't. Brain doesn't hear that. You're going to pay attention to that. Just letting it be, letting yourself think that, you will let it go. and you'll get into that nice flow.
Awesome advice. What's the third thing that you can recommend?
Third thing I love to do is shadow work. So if anyone that doesn't know, shadow work is basically healing those parts of you that you suppress, whether that be drawing attention to the insecurities, the jealousy, the worries, the past trauma, everything that you don't like about yourself that you subconsciously push away. It is asking yourself questions. Why does that trigger me? Why do I feel the way I feel about this? What are my insecurities? It's a tough process, but ultimately, that's one of the things that I really feel moves you forward in the process of healing.
That I can, even on face value, see that would be so beneficial. But the first thing that
It's deep.
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes into my head, and certainly anyone listening, would be that's going to be a bit of a painful process.
Oh, yeah.
And I think a lot of people will be avoidant of that. So are there baby steps into that? Because I can even see that being beneficial for the amount of thousands of people that we see, on the program here. But to try and sort of say to people, confront your fears and confront the horrors that you're suppressing is a very difficult thing to do.
Well, it's the opposite of what society wants us to do. It's that toxic positivity of everything is fine. Let's all sing Kumbaya and dance around the bonfire. It's like you're actually seeing, okay, I'm not okay. I do have a darker side of myself, as everyone does. And it's learning not to push that away, but to accept that, because that is a part of you and you need to accept yourself as a whole.
From there, once you do have that acceptance and understanding, do you, would you dwell on that, or is that something that's an ongoing sort of thing, or how's the thought process?
I create this process of when I write it down. Once I write it onto the pen, I'm letting it go. And it's that process of healing your inner child almost, because a lot of this stuff comes from the past. And when you're writing it down, instead of attacking yourself and attacking that part of you, you're approaching it from the helicopter. You're seeing that perspective and understanding and feeling compassion and love towards that side of you and saying, I accept this. It may not be right, but I accept this because I know I'm doing the best with what I can right now.
Yeah, it's almost like it sounds like a bit of a mental workout.
It
is. The same way that
it's exhausting.
In the gym, if you do 100 bicep curls and the muscle fails, and you come back next week, you can do 101. The week after, you can do 102. It's kind of that thing of, if you put the work in, you're going to get the result from it. And
consistency.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, you're right, shy away from that mental workout of, I need to face these fears because everything's okay and we're all okay and we live in this world where it's all good and feel happy, and that's not always the case. So that is phenomenal that you do that 3 times a day.
And it's a process. Like, you are never completely healed. We're always healing. There's always new things to work through and things to grow from. We're never at a point where we're completely fine and healed. And you don't want to, because that's what's exciting about life. It's always growing, and you learn these lessons from these past experiences that you can apply to your future that make you show up as a better version of yourself.
Jade, I'm absolutely blown away by your wealth of experience and knowledge and wisdom. I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I think every person listening... Thank you so much for having me. It's my absolute pleasure, believe me. Anyone who is listening, I think, has definitely benefited from today's episode. Where can people find you? How can people book in sessions with you and explore Healing with Jade? Where can they go? So
I have an Instagram account. It's called Healing with Jade. People often direct message me through the DMs there, rather asking questions or trying to arrange appointments and discovery calls, which is really good. Not only that, through Instagram, I'm able to post lots of content on healing, journal prompts. I have a thing where I do journal prompt of the day. So Instagram would be the best way to contact me.
Team, speaking from personal experience, Jade is a wealth of knowledge and will definitely help you on your journey. Do yourself a favor, jump onto Instagram, follow her account, reach out if you need it. Once again, thank you so much, Jade Bennett, for coming on the podcast. That is a wrap. We will see you next time on Black Label Mindset.